Okay, today we will be doing notes on email etiquette. Hopefully you already have a Google Doc open and ready to go to create these. And please do make sure if you miss something, because I don't wait long enough, that you ask the sub or have them pause it and ask a neighbor what else it is that you need in your notes. So the reason we're focusing here on email is because this is a major form of communication within our school system. Oftentimes teachers are emailing you about assignments and other things coming up, and oftentimes students will email teachers if they are going to be gone or just need help. So just making sure that we are following proper protocol. So the structure of an email. It has basically 5 main parts: addressing, the subject, the message, which is just your typed text, sometimes attachments, and then your signature. And we'll talk about these in more detail here on the next few slides. So the first thing to think of is making sure that we are keeping it professional. So when writing your teacher, it's good to not use their first name and greet them politely in the email. So think back to when we did our different types of business letters, just what was the proper etiquette. So just a sample here would be to write, "Dear Mrs. Smith." Okay, now looking at the addressing part of an email. So addressing simply means the address of the recipient. So that's going to be in the to area, and you would just type in that person's email address. So next, who will see your email? So this can be a little bit more complicated than you might originally think. So the first thing is you want to make sure that you don't just accidentally click a reply all. When you do this, that means everybody the email was sent to would then be able to see your response. If you put an address into the CC area, just like when we did memos, this means you are carbon copying a person, and so the person will be able to reply and see who else you are sending this email to. And you also have the choice of a BCC. This I recommend to use sparingly. And when you use this, the person that you are sending the actual email to will not know who you're sending a copy to. And really this isn't necessary. This is just more for keeping somebody in the loop, but generally we're not going to use the BCC. Okay, the next important thing is the subject line, and this can be a little bit difficult to comprehend what should be in it, how much do I put, and it's just something that a lot of people kind of struggle with. So first you want to know that your subject line should be brief and accurate. I don't need your whole story in the subject line, just a very good description of what this email is about is really the most useful thing. it's probably a good idea to maybe state which class and assignment your email is about, especially if maybe you have a teacher for more than one class, or you also have to think, we teach many students in a day, so just kind of a heads up and being in that right frame of mind for what class it is that you're asking about or wanting to discuss. Then it's really important to avoid sending an email that you just don't put a subject in. That makes it difficult for a teacher to know, is this something I need to read right away? Could it wait till I'm at work on Monday? So just try and always put something in that subject line. So here's just a sample. So in the subject line, I might say essay for language arts first period, and that's going to give me as a teacher a heads up of what is it that this email is referring to before I even open it. Okay, now this you do not need to type down, I just want you to look at it. But these are some sample subject lines, and then over on the right side you see the time. So you can see kind of all 5 of these subject lines aren't really giving me any clue as to what the email is going to be about. As teachers, we receive lots of emails a day. When I'm not in the building, I still like and try to check my email. So is it because you're in my class right now and you're struggling and you want help? Or just questions, these just are not very descriptive in telling me what's going on. Okay, once again, this doesn't need to go in your notes, but these, if we look at them, are much more effective subject lines. They're more descriptive, so I know what is it that the sender is wanting. So party planning meeting rescheduled, a reminder about peer review articles are due, questions about a Sociology 210 project. These just really tell me more about what's going to be inside that email when I open it up. Okay, these once again don't need to be in your notes, but just something to look at. So just a couple of things of maybe how we could make these subjects better. And so the read just simply means response, like I've clicked reply and I'm responding to that email. And so I've changed the subject line to question about Smith paper, and maybe the student had originally had the subject line as please help with this. So now it's a little bit more descriptive. I'll know what it is we're talking about. Then the bottom one, it's not changed yet, but you would want to remove all of those extra email prefixes. So we have all the reads, so somebody's replied to it 3 times, forward, just lots of extra things that I really don't need. I really just need that reminder deadline for spring semester. Okay, now back to typing in your notes. So discussing keeping it short and to the point. We don't need a whole 5-paragraph email about what's going on. So rambling on and on about the reasons or excuses or why something's going to be late or why something's not done, that's probably really not going to help your cause out. It's best to state the problem or request it right away. Don't try and give me a story or, all that small talk type stuff. Just get to the point. It is good to use paragraphs instead of having this whole long thing that just goes on forever. Use paragraphs just like you're writing a paper or writing a letter. And then make sure you have a break into paragraphs. So that means skipping lines. You usually on email aren't able to tab in for paragraphs necessarily, but make sure you know a double space, and that lets me know that I'm into a new paragraph, so kind of a new topic. As much fun as it is, avoid fancy typeface. It's just the plain old basic, whatever the font is in your email will suffice. This is an example. Once again, this doesn't need to go in your notes, but just so you know what I mean. So our sample email here, Dear Mrs. Smith, I would like to hand in my essay on Monday as I will be unable to hand it in on Friday. So this just allows me as the teacher, if I want to question that, if I want to go find whoever sent this to me, that's better than having to read on and on about a long story. Okay, and the next important thing to know, do not use all capital letters. Now, the reason for this, when you use all caps, it's just conveying that feeling that you're mad or you're shouting. So it's just a good idea to not type your whole entire email all in capital letters. Also, do not use too many exclamation points. So again, it's just extra emphasis that in an email is really not necessary. Okay, here's another example, nothing you need to type in your notes. So, Dear Mrs. Smith, then the rest of it's all in capitals. I can't possibly get my essay done by Friday, exclamation mark. There's just not enough time for me to get it done. Bunch of exclamation marks. This is not very professional. This is not what we're looking to get from you as students. Okay, then this is one of the biggest struggles I see with teenagers, is not using a bunch of abbreviations or slang. We're not texting here. We are writing a professional email. Okay, so like I just said, it's not the same as texting. Don't use those abbreviations, later L8R. That's not going to work. Also, try not use slang words when writing an email to a teacher, official, or someone else that's older than you. Okay, this sample doesn't need to go in your notes either, but just this is something I definitely do not want to see, especially as we do our practice assignments as well. So, hey, Mrs. Smith, no capital letters there. I just can't get it together to get all of my stuff done this week. Could you cut me some slack on the due date for that essay? So you can see lots of abbreviations, slang. This just doesn't look very professional at all. So try and steer away from this when writing emails. Okay, another important thing. Even though email is a quick communication, it's important to read over it before you hit that send button. So just make sure that you have no spelling errors or grammar errors. So just like when you write a paper, just proofread it. Also, you want to make sure that you have not made your email too emotional or angry. And so my example here, Dear Mr. Smith, so all the other times she'd been a Mrs., you misspelled her name. And then the text of the email says, I'm just tearing my hair out, trying to figure out how to tell you that I can't finish my essay in time. I am totally freaking out. So that is just way too much emotion for an email, especially to a teacher. Okay, this is just another example. Nothing that you need to put in your notes, but just kind of poor email content. So if the sub wants to just pause this for about 30 seconds, give you a chance to read over it. Okay, so this is what I am not wanting to see. This slide is much better content. We can see there's some paragraphs, and it's just more polished than that first email.